So ready to go, Jan.
Yeah. So hi everyone. Thanks for joining that session, which is a Cloud Bridge to Cloud Bridge. So just a few words about the speakers. From my side, I'm Jan Faro. I joined Vetra 3 months ago from Microsoft, and I'm in charge of the development of the cloud security offering for EMEA. Andy, over to you.
Yes. So good afternoon, and I guess good morning also from the people on the in the US dialing in. So first, welcome and thanks for making the time available for listening to this webinar. So my name is Andy Gijsbrechts, based out of Belgium in Europe. Also joined Vetra a bit over 5 months ago. Have a diverse background, been in the IT market for 25 years. And the role that I have within Vetra is very similar to Jan's. It's working with our customers and partners as they move more and more of their data applications in the cloud, on working with new technologies that we bring to market, that we brought to market, for securing them their data applications in that hybrid cloud environment. So with that, I wanted to maybe do some housekeeping. I think that's maybe you will go over this first, Jan.
Yeah, so about the housekeeping, very quite simple. So as you can imagine, everyone is muted. So please ask your question in the Q&A chat box, and someone from our team will reply. You have additional content in the bottom left that you can consume, and also on the bottom right, you can try our self-service demo. Please, at the end of the webinar, if you can spend a few minutes to complete the survey. Andy, slide.
Yep. So thanks. So thanks, Jan. So what we'll do today is we'll cover a couple of items. So first of all, the first part of the presentation will really lay out, how the threat landscape is looking in multi and hybrid cloud environments, and as we do that, we'll tackle or go a bit more into the detail what that means for enterprises from a security challenges point of view and the initiatives that they need to launch around it. Then I'll take over, and from Jan, I will talk a bit more about the why and how we're Vetra and how we can help you. And we'll go into more specific use cases on providing our technologies and how we did that with customers. And then we'll end off the presentation with some takeaways.
So let's move on and go into the presentation. So first of all, the idea is to try to summarize what are the challenges faced by our CISO in the cloud. So on the bottom, on the top, sorry, you have the new threat landscape, and we will dig into this in the next slide, because it's important to understand that, of course, the cloud provider have invested a lot in cybersecurity, but also they bring systemic risk. One of the important challenges as well is about the organizational and technical challenge that the CISO are facing. From a report from Oracle and KPMG in 2022, 92% of respondents indicate that their organization suffers from a cloud security readiness gaps. The situation is better now, but that readiness gap is still significant. In addition to that, what we can see is the collaboration between the business and the cybersecurity teams is still complicated. Okay, so the next challenge is about the strategy and the tooling. Company deploy new control as the cloud include major environmental difference. It is a total of up to 100 discrete cybersecurity control that could be deployed, of course, increasing complexity. There is a need to redesign the threat model and cybersecurity program and to embrace zero trust and streamline that to optimize that investment. A good example is the SOC, which was built initially to cover on-premises and need to evolve to monitor cloud as well. Some organizations are built another SOC, of course, specifically for the cloud. Sometimes it would make sense to comply to specific regulation, but it will require significant additional investments. So it has to be evaluated, it has to be assessed. It had to be assessed with the right requirement. And the last one, and I think it's also super important, is the fatigue of the security practitioner. From a recent UK survey from Vetra on the IT security decision maker, over half have experienced negative emotion such as depression, hunger, or anxiety due to feeling overwhelmed by work. There is a fatigue from the security practitioner in this high-pressure context, and solutions need to be found, such as hiring, training, automation to address that. So, what does that mean? The threat landscape. So, cloud providers have a massive attack surface. Of course, as mentioned previously, cloud providers have invested heavily in cybersecurity. You know, for example, Google and Microsoft claimed more than 20 billion each of investment in cybersecurity. For sure, cloud environment is more secure than most of customers' on-premises environment. But however, the cloud is complex. As an example, GCP, so Google Cloud, has over 100 services, AWS over 200 services, and Azure even more, with 600 services. So this number is steadily growing. So you can imagine that configuring security across these services creates various challenges. Of course, on top of that, infrastructure can encompass hundreds of services, and it's difficult to achieve a state of good cybersecurity hygiene. So it's a huge attack surface, and attackers only need a single opening to exploit entire environment. I just want to give you just want to give you a concrete example of the attack suffered by the cloud provider. All public cloud providers are concerned. Of course, the first three, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, but also Alibaba, IBM Cloud, and SaaS apps as well. You know, hackers aren't necessarily going after enterprise first. They are also attacking the cloud provider, and the volume of public cloud utilization is growing rapidly, so that inevitably leads to a greater body of sensitive stuff that is potentially at risk. I will just take two examples in that style. So the first one is related to Microsoft. You know, the hacker group Lapsus post a screenshot, and you can see that in the first line. In March 2022, post a screenshot to their Telegram channel indicating that they have breached Microsoft. Now the screenshot mentioned that Bing, Cortana, and other projects had been compromised to the breach. And you have probably also heard about Lapsus with the breach of the IDP Okta. I will take a second example, which is related to Amazon in December 2021. A hacker group identified as UA Wrong Team broke into Flex Booker, an online booking platform, and made off with data on roughly 3 million users. So after looting the data, they're posted for sale on various hacker forums. The data was apparently accessed by exploiting Flex Booker Amazon Web Service configuration. So, attacker use the cloud to attack, to get access to the data, to the customer data. But in fact, there are so many entry points. I will just mention a few of them. So let me. Oops, sorry for that. So ironically, attackers are in the cloud to breach the cloud. So attackers use the cloud to host their infrastructure. And on the cloud provider side, attacker can exploit a vulnerability. You know, half of the more than 2,500 disclosed cloud-related vulnerability record to date were disclosed in the last 18 months. They can also abuse legitimate services. You know, many malware campaigns this past year utilize legitimate site in every stage of malware campaign, from delivery to exfiltration. Cloud services such as Google Drive, Microsoft OneDrive, Adobe Spark, of course, are very popular for use as initial delivery of malware. But they can also decide to poison the machine learning algorithm to modify the expected outcomes. We have seen a trend shift. The past year, attackers had focused on evasion attacks, exploiting the fragility of some machine learning model. Nowadays, we see data poisoning attacks, where the target is the training data that the machine learning model are built from. Another very important one is the public API policy, as they represent a significant security gap. For example, in the IBM Cloud Threat Landscape report in 2021, 2/3 of the incidents analyzed involve improperly configured application programming interface. But the problem is, with the attacker can also use the customer side to attack. The first one, and the most obvious, is the steal of credential. Confirmed again in the latest CrowdStrike 2022 Global Threat Report, credential-based intrusion against cloud environment are among the more prevalent exploitation vectors used by e-crime and targeted intrusion adversaries. Criminal actors, as you may know, host fake authentication page to harvest legitimate authentication credentials from cloud services, such as, of course, Microsoft 365, Okta, or others. The second one is also super important. It's leverage misconfiguration. You know, criminal actors have periodically exploit improperly configured Docker container, and as mentioned previously, due to the number of settings, it is almost impossible to avoid any misconfiguration. And the last one, and it's important to keep it in mind, is to pivot from on-prem to cloud. We have many recent examples from Hafnium, starting from a 0-day on-premises Exchange server in early 2021, to Nobelium, leveraging an exploit on SolarWinds, a network management tool, in late 2020, where the attack starts on-premise and continue in the cloud. Regardless of the entry point, meaning how the host or the account would be compromised, attackers will try to progress using different planes. Now, it can be directly through the server, of course, hosted in the cloud, by finding vulnerability and moving literally until the attackers get the data that will be exfiltrated. But otherwise, the attacker, and you see that on the bottom, can elevate privilege to manage cloud services and get access to the servers containing sensitive data. Both can lead to the same result. So there is a need to cover each layer by preventive and detective solution. Of course, customer could prioritize which one should be covered based on risk and effort needed. But in every security plan, both should be addressed. So, just to emphasize that threat, and you have a survey from the Hornet Security who mentioned that 67 of the respondents believe that the hybrid cloud strategy is not a stepping stone to cloud-native infrastructure, but rather a permanent destination. That means that customers should address cloud as a new scope, but continue investing in the other environment, in particular their data center on premises. So let's discuss about a list of initiatives raised by the CISO we talked to in order to address these challenges. So first one is about, it is an initiative related to DevSecOps. As cloud supports digital transformation with new business model, the developers are leading the IT stream, meaning that security should be directly embedded in the DevOps process through DevSecOps. And you have a list of tools that can help to cover that specific stream. Another one is, I would say, is also very important, and the pandemic has accelerated that, is the zero trust, meaning that as cloud creates new way of working and consuming services, the CISOs have to change their security model. They cannot consider anymore that the user should consume services from on-premises and that protecting on-premises is enough. For example, the image of the castle is not relevant anymore. CISO have to embrace a zero trust approach. The third one is, as cloud is a new scope that should be monitored, the Security Operations Center need to evolve to embrace that scope and take benefit of what the cloud can provide to improve efficiency. And cloud is a great opportunity to CISO for bringing automation, scalability, and AI. The other stream is related to data security, as you can imagine. As cloud leverage new components, such as container, ensuring scalability, portability, the CISOs should invest in new set of technology to protect this environment, such as CWPP, and if you need, we can provide more detail about that. The other one, it's not new, but it's even more critical in the cloud, as the identity is becoming a new perimeter. As cloud use identity as a new control plane, mastering the identity and access management is fundamental. It will require significant internal change due to existing legacy system in place and custom development that need to be replaced. We can also discuss a little bit more about that if you need. And the last one is more about the governance and the strategy. As cloud has a huge attack surface, and we mentioned that at the beginning of the presentation, it requires shared responsibility between the customer and the cloud provider. And CISOs have to review their governance model and reinforce control. But as you can see, most of them, and we mentioned some tool, the KNAP, the CWPP, CSPM, and I'm pretty sure that you have heard about them, are not supporting the SOC modernization initiative. Andy, over to you.
So yeah, thank you, Jan. So what we wanted to do is kind of zoom in a bit on how to accomplish a zero trust security strategy in a hybrid cloud environment, and how a technology providing AI threat detection and response can help you with accomplishing that. So in essence, if you look at it from a preventive point of view, what you will need to do as an individual and as an organization is to make decisions whether you are going to allow or block access for certain applications and users. That in itself means that you need to put a bunch of hardening into place, things that will include things like, workload protection, cloud security posture management, multi-factor authentication, and what have you. So in essence, it means putting in place a policy with a lot of granular rules about which applications can, and data or device or identity can access each other. So, and it means, adding also new enforcement points in place to implement that policy. So things like, for instance, micro-segmentation or CASBs for SaaS application. So all of this, is quite an undertaking, and it is very, time-consuming and work-intensive. And actually, study has shown, or an enquete from Forrester has shown to get to the ideal level or zero trust maturity, it will take you up to 7 or 8 years or 7 to 10 years to get to that level. So what do you do in the interim, right? So your business isn't really waiting, and certainly hackers aren't. So you're kind of exposed. And so, well, if you think about it differently, detection and response technology is what we call the ultimate zero trust approach. And you could ask yourself, why is that? It's because you're literally trusting nothing, right? So our philosophy is that we're assuming that there will be breaches and that attackers will get into your network. And so what you need to do as an organization is you need to constantly have a view of what is happening in your environment. And every single transaction, whether it is allowed or not, needs to be analyzed for bad behavior. And so, and while it is, the ultimate solution for a zero trust environment, it's also much faster, right? So you can implement it without changing anything to the policy. It's actually agentless, it's passive, it's observing, and it doesn't break things. So this, for you as an organization, creates the opportunity to bring protection of zero trust philosophy much earlier and help you protect as you build to that ideal prevention and enforcement state over the next couple of years. But even if you do, reach that level of ideal prevention, that prevention is never going to be perfect. And so having a technology that, has threat detection and response in place will also serve as a safety net, when the next log4 shell or, misconfiguration bypasses some of your prevention controls. All right, and so what we wanted to do is maybe look at this more specifically with an example, which a narrow one, but an important one around privileged accounts. So if you're doing enforcement, you need to figure out what all the privileged accounts are, which are all of your admin accounts, your service accounts, and what have you. And then you kind of need to figure out exactly what each of them, needs to be able to do, and define all of that in the policies to reflect it. But you also need to maintain it, because obviously organizations are not static, they are dynamic. So new roles are being created, technology evolves. And so it's a really, really hard problem that will take years. So if on the other hand, you use an AI-driven threat detection response approach, you automatically learn the privileged accounts. So what it does, it observes use to learn the effective least privileged policy. And so you are more naturally, through observing the behavior, evolving to least privileged account state. And then it tells you when usage goes outside of that policy, which is where the attacker usually lives. So again, there's no changes in policy when using this technology. It can be done in years as opposed to 2 years. And you're protected, or you're protecting your privileged accounts from attacks in weeks, again, as opposed to 2 years. Back to you, Jan.
Yeah, so as was mentioned by Andy, you have to work on both, on preventive and detective solution. So that means that you need to, and as mentioned previously in terms of initiative, you have to work on the SOC modernization for cloud. And we provide in that slide some steps that could be used in order for you to work on that specific initiative. So this is different steps that you can follow to monitor cloud in your SOC. Some step, as you can see, will depend if the SOC is managed or not by an MSSP, which is the case most of the time for large organizations. Our main recommendation is to identify the use cases that you want to cover and check if you should leverage your existing solution to do that, or if you have to invest in additional solution, and we will discuss about that later with Andy. Because, in fact, the purpose is you will have to analyze a massive amount of data generated by the cloud and send only qualified alerts to your SIEM. So it should be a choice based on cost to build and update the use cases and on efficiency. Because sometimes you will try to build some use cases directly consuming raw data and ingesting this raw data into your SIEM, but unfortunately the result would be a lot of noise, so that means that it will be not relevant for your analyst. So it doesn't make sense to create use cases which generate noises and will not help to identify potential risks. So this is why it's really important for you when you want to address the cloud as part of your SOC organization to go through the different steps and to assess to define what you want to do, how you will want to do, and take benefits of this investment, because it will require investment. It can be whether it will be through your existing SIEM or existing technology, whether it will require additional investment. So please, you can use this assessment to improve the efficiency of your existing SOC. And of course, it's also important, as the last step, define the right governance model, because it is something that will require continuous improvement from your side. Andy, over to you.
So thank you, Jan. So as Jan, talked about, organizations will need to transform their SOC as they are moving some of their applications and data into the cloud and are adopting a hybrid cloud strategy. So, they will need to modernize their SOC, making sure it can also cope and address, the security challenges that come with the broader attack surface that you inherently have with going into the cloud, but also the added complexity of, configuration of new cloud services, such as, containers or serverless technology, using the cloud providers control plane. And also, obviously, we haven't talked that much about, SaaS applications. So, what do you do as you start using more SaaS applications, such as, for instance, M365? So as they are going, or as you are going through a, modernization, it is important to put measurements and technology in place that look at your entire IT infrastructure and giving you a holistic view of what kind of activities are happening in the cloud as well as on-premise. And this is important because, as alluded to earlier, hackers will quite often move laterally from clouds to on-premise in order to, for instance, exfiltrate sensitive data, but also the other way around. So they will also move from on-premise to clouds and try to compromise your admin account so that they can take control of the entire cloud infrastructure, and with potential ransomware or other consequences. So, at Vetra, we'll talk a bit more about Vetra on its own throughout the presentation. But at Vetra, we have been securing customers' network by delivering AI-driven threat detection and response for the network and the IaaS environment from for our customers, customers that are lifting and shifting their data and application to, for instance, AWS or Azure. We've been doing that for the last 10 plus years. And as our customers are, I think from a positioning point of view, it's important to understand that we obviously integrate very closely with our ecosystem partners that provide the EDR, whereas we've been providing the NDR technology. But as our customers are moving and more using hybrid cloud infrastructure and started to use more of the native applications, what we did within Vetra, we started developing technologies that also allows us to help our customers protect what they're doing in the cloud with those native applications, or protecting the SaaS applications that they start using, such as M365. And so being able to do that as being Vetra, been giving us a exponential growth over the last 2 years, because obviously companies have accelerated their move into the cloud through the pandemic. So the way we do this, let me just click once. So the way we do this without going too much into the detail of the technology itself is to look at two pipelines. So we've been looking, as I said, for the last 10 years already at the packets, which obviously reside on your network layer, whether those are on-premise or in your data center or in AWS, Azure, or Google IaaS levels. But at the same time, also looking at the logs that are being generated as you perform activities using the control plane, for instance, in your cloud provider. And so what we then do is we take that information and get it analyzed by our security researchers that in essence are looking at the fundamental or the fundamentals of attacker behavior. And that behavior in itself is being codified by data science instead of focusing more on payloads as being done in preventive security solutions. And this is the way we do this, looking at both the packets as the logs, putting that information and correlating it through security and data science, gives you real-time and high fidelity information, and it's quite unique in the market, right? So there's no real other vendor that does this from a threat detection and threat detection and response point of view. So far, let me just build this slide first. Sorry for that. So far, we've been mostly talking about, the technology and the solutions and the trends and so forth. But what actually does all of this mean to you as, an individual, being a CISO, security administrator, security analyst, or even to the business? Well, we've seen that, our customers, by using our AI-driven threat detection and response technology, seen dramatic improvements in their ability to find and stop threats actually before they have any impact. And, just as importantly, as Jan also alluded to earlier in the presentation, they are achieving that with much less time and work to see through that alert noise, so giving, much less frustration to those people in the SOC. So, on the other hand, what we've also seen is that, by using Vetra technology, we've been able to consolidate, or in some cases also replace, certain tools that's been more traditional in place over the last couple of years, such as IDS NetFlow, or in some cases even SIEM use cases. And one example that that I can give, for instance, from for SIEM, is that we've been working with retail customers in the Netherlands, where we were able to reduce their SIEM license cost by 50%, mostly by reducing the number of terabytes they brought down per day from 3 terabytes to 200 gigabit of terabytes, 200 gigabit of byte per day, because of the fact that we deliver some of the use cases that they develop in the SIEM out of the box through our NDR solution. Oops, sorry for that. That's a long slide. So what I wanted to do as well, because we've seen that in the through the registration, the people attending this call, that for some of them this is the first interaction with Vetra. We wanted to maybe just give a high-level overview of Vetra and why we're doing what we're doing. And when I explain about company, I always start with the why for people that are a fan of Simon Sinek or have read the book. It all starts with the why. And the best person obviously to give that explanation is our CEO and founder. And so the reason why Vetra was founded is really to make the world a safer and fairer place. And we see that not only through our own lens, but also through our customers' lens. What does that mean in numbers? So as I said earlier, so we've been around for quite some time. So we've been actually founded in 2010, and the goal is really to provide technology using artificial intelligence to detect and respond to potential breaches in the network based upon attack or hacker behavior. We've got more than 35 patents granted or pending. Over the last 10 years, we've signed up more than 700 customers worldwide. We have $350 million of funding, and 95% of our customers, once they buy, stay with us. I think the goal really of this slide is to show you a bit that we've got proven technology that has proven his use and his business value in the enterprise network. And as customers are moving more in the hybrids, we're sure that we'll be able to deliver the same kind of value to those customers as well. So as we are putting much of our research and development into developing technology for the hybrid clouds, it is obviously of importance for us to work very closely with our cloud providers as well. And so we are in strategic partnerships with both Microsoft as AWS. For Microsoft, as you can see, we're a member of the Microsoft Intelligent Security Association, which means that we're also part of the Gartner sub-triad. So we work very closely and integrate well with Microsoft Sentinel, that then functions as the SIEM, and integrate with the EDR solution, the Defender ATP solution from Microsoft as well. So we have joint development and engineering that we do with Microsoft. We are also available on the Microsoft Marketplace, the Azure Marketplace. So people that have pre-committed MAC contracts in place and want to burn down some of their spends with Vetra, you're more than welcome to do that. We have with AWS, we've demonstrated the highest level of security capability and achieved security competency level within the AWS partner network. And we're also available on the AWS Marketplace for customers that have EDP contracts, for instance, or want to buy through the marketplace. So, and then, as a last slide, before we, wanted to get into the takeaways and potential questions. So I wanted to kind of illustrate and walk you through how an attacker can progress within a hybrid cloud environment and how we actually visualize this for our customers. But also at the same time, showing that it is important for you as an organization to balance off where you make the investments from a technology point of view, looking at the preventive solutions, looking at, threat detection and response solutions and others, but also from a, process point of view. So you need to make sure that not only your technology is in place, but also the way you actually manage that technology. And so what you see in the screen is actually how we visualize the environment for our customers. So this is the quadrants where we on the top left, on the bottom left, show all of the the vulnerabilities or the threats that we categorize as low importance, and now we go to medium, high, and critical. And so what happened in this specific enterprise is that the DevOps team for these customers opened an RDP on an Azure server, and that got compromised through a brute force attack. And so what happened is that this attacker, because it got its way into the organization, jumped to the domain controller and opened a Cobalt Strike based tunnel. And so the attackers were searching for data to exfiltrate and encrypt, but didn't complete their recon objective in the first night. And so what you see here is, as we are looking at the activities happening in the network, what was first perceived as a low threat through the activities jumped into the critical quadrant. And so as the attacker was, pursuing and going further with his work, they 4 domain controllers were alerted by Vetra as being critical with scores over 90 plus. But the challenge that the organization had at that moment in time is that the Vetra tool owner was not with the company anymore, and the deputy analyst was on vacation. So unfortunately, although this was alerted, the right people and policies were not actually in place. And what happened is that the hacker got full control and was able to successfully exfiltrate 42 gigs of encrypted files, and also brought the part of the company's network down and asked for ransomware. So, so it is important, as I said, to have the right security technology strategy in place. And certainly as you move more and more into a hybrid cloud environment, and you have cloud teams that need to be working more closely together with the security teams, because it becomes all more complex and more people are, acting or doing stuff on the cloud. So with that, you need to make sure that you also look at your organizational structure and make sure that the cloud teams are in close collaboration with your security teams. So with that, I want to turn it over again to Jan for some of the last takeaways.
Yeah. So if we try to summarize, and thank you very much for listening. What could be or what should be the plan in order to protect and to monitor your cloud? So of course you have to limit the attack surface, and we mentioned that through different technology, and we are not there to position them, but as mentioned, you have what we call right now in the market the CSPM, the CWPP, which can help you to reduce that attack surface. And of course, you can turn on some setting directly in the cloud provider. You can find in Microsoft or in AWS some guidance to reinforce or to enforce some policy in this cloud provider. But you have also to increase your detection capability, and it was the purpose of that presentation is to say, of course, you have to invest in a preventive solution, but you have also to improve in detective solution, because you have to modernize your SOC and to add additional scope, which is the cloud that should be monitored. You have, and it seems obvious, but it's not always the case. You have to ensure a 360 coverage. So most of the time right now, the Security Operations Center covers pretty well the on-premises because it was at the beginning the first scope of the Security Operations Center. They try to include the cloud services. Most of the time, they consume, we say, native and raw logs, and the use cases that are built in the SIEM are not fully relevant. So this is why for us the plan is, in order to reduce the alert fatigue, you have to leverage AI to do that. So what we can suggest or offer as an action plan, as mentioned by Andy, we have several solutions in Vetra, of course, the network part, but we have also solutions who are dedicated to cloud provider and to cloud solution. We have what we call Detect for AWS. We have Detect for Microsoft 365. Later in the year, we will have Detect for Azure. So it's a simple way to monitor the cloud control plane and, of course, reduce alert fatigue, because our role is to deliver high fidelity alert. So, and after that, or maybe it is already the case, is to extend to the network, which can be on premises, of course, but you can also extend network, I will say, visibility or detection directly in the cloud, because the sensor that we deploy right now on-prem can be easily deployed in the cloud as well. Yep. So let's see if you have any question from the audience. We have one. How long does it take to deploy Detect for AWS and Detect for Microsoft 365? If we want to try them out, Andy, you want to respond?
So yeah, absolutely. So so that's a good question. So we do have evaluation in place for both. Detect for AWS is relatively straightforward. It doesn't take that much time to set up and to start deploying. I think it's something, let's say, around everything between half an hour and an hour potentially. Detect for M365 can be take a bit more time, as we need to get more information from you to set it up. But what I would suggest is that you reach out directly to us so that we can look more specifically to how we can help you with Azakash. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, we have another question, which is more related to Microsoft 365. Is what does it bring on top of the NDR solution? So what is the coverage of the Detect for Microsoft 365 on top of the NDR? I don't know if you want to provide additional insight.
Or maybe, otherwise, I think you're better positioned maybe to answer that. Okay.
So in order to provide some insight, so the network will analyze, and it was one slide delivered by Andy. It's more about the packets. So we will look at the traffic, and we look at the network traffic. When for Microsoft 365, we will look at the log delivered directly by those services. So that means that we will look at, as an example, Azure ID. We will look at the different activity on Azure ID to detect abnormal behavior. We will also look at the different activity that you can see. So for example, if someone use the e-discovery, so an application available in Microsoft 365, we will look at it and raise an alert if there is an abnormal usage of the e-discovery. We will do the same, for example, on the administration of Exchange. So that means that clearly it's two different scopes, covered by Detect for Network and Detect for Microsoft 365, because Detect for Microsoft 365 is clearly on the control plane of Microsoft 365. So you will look at all the activity that can occur in Microsoft 365. And to be honest, it's complementary to what Microsoft can offer, because it is look at some use cases that are not well defined by Microsoft. And even if you ingest the data directly into your SIEM, the use cases that are delivered by the SIEM do not cover what we can offer as a detection rule. Any other question? I don't see any other question. Maybe, oh, yes, we have another one. So do you support only AWS and Azure as cloud provider, or also Google?
So shall I take this one, Jan?
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, so we support actually all three. So we support Google, Microsoft, as well as AWS. When you look at it from a threat detection and response at an IS level, so at a network level. So in essence, we have reference architecture in place for collecting the necessary information in Google, Azure, or AWS, and to present potential threats at the network layer. However, as I said, and as customers more and more are moving into cloud and starting cloud native applications, they will do many more activities using the control plane of the cloud providers. And so again, also to similar to the answer that Jan just delivered, we need to look at another sort of data and information to analyze that, but also to correlate it and bring it together with what we see in the network. And so today, for AWS, we have a solution which is called Detect for AWS, which actually looks at all of the activities that's been done from a control plane point of view with AWS. We don't yet have that for Microsoft, for Azure, nor for Google. Since we are not under NDA, I need to be a bit careful with my statements here, but let's say we are working on a similar technology, or a similar approach, or a similar product for Azure on the short term. And so, if you're interested to learn more and potentially be someone that wants to look at it, do reach out to us, as we can reveal much more after we've signed an NDA.
So we have another question. How would you classify the product? Is it an IDS, or can you put some buzzword or somewhat comparable to other product or similar category?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's certainly not an IDS. You could say it's another category. Where, as I said, so AI. So what we do, AI threat detection and response. The philosophy that we have is completely different than some of the other security players, and such as IDS, for instance, where we're saying that we trust nothing, right? So we're assuming that that bad people or hackers will get into your network. And so what we deliver is technology that is constantly going to analyze that, activities in your network, and is going to analyze those against the always evolving, behavior of attackers. And so the way we build that technology, as I said, we look at it and from a security analyst point of view, or security researcher, where we're going to analyze and look at the fundamentals of attacker behavior, and then work together with our data science that are going to codify that behavior and let it evolve as we learn more about the behavior of attackers. So it's not to be compared with an IDS solution. Hopefully
And if I can just complement or try to summarize, en fait, Vetra is an AI security platform. And the goal of that platform is to improve the SOC analyst efficiency. And we collect information from network and logs through API from cloud provider and SaaS apps. And what Vetra does is to raise high fidelity alerts through the best machine learning algorithm. It's also to prioritize through machine learning the incident, helping analysts to focus on what matters the most, and of course automate response. And the last one is provide probably deep content. We did not mention that in detail in the presentation, allowing efficient hunting to remediate faster, because as mentioned, we can, and on the network part, we can collect some metadata. So that means that we have all the information helping the hunter in the SOC to dig into that information and try, as we use some buzzword, try to find the needle in the haystack. Sorry. Any additional question? So maybe because we had a question about the IDS, there's also another question about what is the difference with your solution versus a SIEM?
Yeah, so maybe so I talked briefly about that in the business overview. So first of all, I would like to stress that our threat detection and response technology absolutely fits perfectly in the the Gartner SOC triad, where a SIEM plays an important role for collection and correlation, and where EDR also plays an important role as well. And so I think we also gave an example in our partnership with Microsoft, where we integrate nicely with Sentinel and ATP. However, we have seen customer scenarios over the last couple of years that we build up intelligence in our technology with the result that we support a number of use cases out of the box that you would normally have to configure and support in your SIEM. So in essence, what we do in some cases is we simplify from a more use case approach based on different technologies to analyzing attacker behavior. And that gives you an output that, that could be done by doing development into a SIEM. But as we learned over the last couple of years, we actually get it out of the box. And so, the result of that is that in some cases, we've seen an enormous reduction or improvement on the costs in terms of the licensing and the development for SIEM versus our solution. So in short, it works perfectly happily in a SOC triad together with a SIEM and EDR solution. But in some use cases, a SIEM could be a bit of an overkill, and we get out of the box support for the use case you're looking for.
Thank you, Andy. I think we have no more questions. So maybe just if you need further information, this is some white paper that are available. You can have access to it, and they will provide additional information if you want to dig in how Vetra use AI to augment SOC efficiency, about how we can help to stop ransomware, about threat hunting with 1 hour feature, which is recall, or also again about the ransomware. As we don't have any more questions, I think we can close that webinar. I want to thank everyone for participating. I hope it was useful, and feel free to and please complete the survey. It's important for us to understand which topic should be covered, and any feedback that will help us to improve the next webinar we will deliver. And any comment?
No, I also from my end, thank you very much for listening to us, and hopefully it was useful, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.